sound. Let's go audio. All right. I think we're ready to roll. Let's go 3, 2, and 1. All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of Persuasion by the Pint. I'm Jonathan Taylor, along with
Sean McCool.
Sean, today we have a guest who will be joining us shortly, and we'll be talking about, the simplest way to nail your next marketing launch without blowing budgets and annoying customers.
That is catchy.
Yeah, that's catchy, isn't it?
You came up with that, didn't you? Obviously, I didn't
stole
help
it. Stole it.
Stolen.
Every great artist steals.
Yes.
But yeah, we're going to be talking how to do this using something termed story funnels.
Yeah.
That our guest will be talking to us about.
Two hottest things in marketing, right? Stories and funnels. But
that's right. Why not put them together?
Slap them together and guaranteed winner right there.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
So before he joins us, though, because I'm not sure, I really didn't have time to find out. He may have a beverage, but I'm not sure. But if not, that's okay, because we'll go ahead and we'll jump in without him.
I got one strong enough for both of us if he doesn't. So.
Oh, good, because I don't.
So I was going to play a joke on you. Sydney's boyfriend was over here last night, and he brought some Miller Lite.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to bring that on as my beer. I was like, no, I can't even make a joke about it. It's just
no, that's. I would have had to turn your camera off, man.
It'd be awful. All right, so what do you got over there? Since it sounds like mine's going to be the winner.
All right. Well, I have I picked this up. Terrapin Brewing Company has one called, unfortunately, it's an IPA, but it is a I love the term. So they got some points for creativity, even if it's way too bitter for me. It is the Hopsecutioner.
Hopsecutioner.
IPA. These guys are out of Athens, Georgia. So that's another plus they have going for them. So yeah, I did not realize that. Have you ever had Terrapin?
I think I have, but I would have thought that was like a Maryland thing up with the Terps.
Yeah, really.
I don't really think of Georgia as the turtle capital of the world or anything. So
I don't either. So I don't have their info pulled up, but enough said. It's an IPA.
All right,
I'm not going to give it too much credit. So you go ahead.
You crack and pour that one. I've got. So I was like at the store and I was like, story funnels. Like I need something with a story behind it, right?
Yeah, why not?
So first of all, I found something from Epic Brewing.
Ooh,
right.
I like that.
Good stories are epics, right?
I like the font on the turn.
Got your attention already. And then I've got the big. You see that? The Big Bad Baptist Imperial Stout.
That's great.
So this luxuriously rich Imperial Stout is aged in used whiskey bourbon barrels and then infused with real coffee and cocoa nibs. A coffee lover's dream. Keep an eye on the release number as every batch gets a different dose of coffee. So this one it says, and the reason they call it Baptist is because it's revived or something in the barrel.
I thought it was going to be like John the Baptist.
There's like a story behind the barrel. Baptized in barrels. That's what it says on the website. At Epic Brewing, we call the fall of every year Baptist season because we gear up for our annual release of Big Bad Baptist and its variants. During Baptist season, our brewery focuses on resources to the final blending and packaging of our highly anticipated annual release of Big Bad Baptist.
Ooh.
So this reminds me of the Full Grown series that I get a lot.
Right.
So we'll see if I haven't tried it yet, so we'll see if it's the same. But it's kind of a cool story going on behind it. So
I like the creativity there.
Yeah. Baptized in whiskey barrels.
That's right.
It's a good way to go.
So what's give us the I didn't catch what it was rated or the IP or the ABV.
11 to 12%.
Okay.
Let me see if it still has I didn't see the. And they have like in this series, they've got chocolate raspberry, double chocolate peanut butter, pecan pie, sextuple barrel. Bigger, Badder Baptista. Big Bad Baptist Reserve coming soon. Oh, that's available this week.
I like the Baptist theme. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it is a kind of a neat theme. And this is the one I'm drinking is the original, and it is. Yeah, it doesn't have the IBUs, but it does have 3 bronze medals, A rating at Beer Advocate, 100 points on Rate Beer, best beer in Utah, and then 95 points from the Beverage Tasting Institute. So, and it's been around since 2012, it looks like. So,
wow. So here's the question. Given the name, would you give that to a Baptist friend?
Absolutely.
Exactly.
I'd have to put it in this discreet Yeti holder here so they don't get in trouble. But yeah. You're a Baptist friend. I could give it to you.
No, I'm a Presbyterian, man.
Oh, are you? It's all the same. Yeah. So, all right. Looks like I see our guest in the green room. This is getting exciting.
That's right.
I'm so excited.
You get to see the inner workings now.
I know. It took me 2 years to get this.
See, I didn't know that though. I didn't know that I had to give you, because I always thought that you could see that initially, and then
I was just letting you do all the work actually. So. So you had tech trouble, and I had to come in and save you. So
there you go.
All right. Yeah. So let's see if our guest has a drink, and then we'll rate ours.
Okay.
Hey.
All right. Hey, Jarie, how are you?
Good. How
Great
you
to
guys
have you.
doing?
Good. So we just snatched out of the green room, and we're going to check to see if you have a beverage before we send you back.
Well, I do. I mean, I drink water now.
Okay. Well,
because there's a long story.
Sean?
Long story why I don't drink anymore. But
okay, I got you.
I do have. If you guys do want some recommendations, I've got some awesome ones when I used to drink. But one of them is an IPA, and I know you guys both hate IPAs, so I'm not going to talk about that one.
Well, Jonathan's having an IPA today. So.
Oh, you are? Wow, this is a change. It's changed.
Yeah,
that's right.
It's kind of getting that time of year where it's hard to find the good stuff. So,
and you'll have to pardon my rudeness, because you sent me an email last week when we were rescheduling and said you don't drink, and I totally forgot that. So my bad.
Okay. No,
such a terrible host.
I used to love to drink. Honestly.
Yeah.
And a couple of things in my life happened that we can talk about, but just hasn't. It's been part of my healing process for when my wife died. So I need to take care of myself. So, but
absolutely.
I enjoyed a good single malt and a good Racer 5 or a Quack or whatever. I was a Belgian beer guy, big Belgian beer guy. Like went to Belgium to drink from the source. That's how hardcore I was. So
that's ahead of me. I can't wait to do that someday when the world reopens.
Yes. Well worth it.
So, well, we can keep him out here, Jonathan. We can keep him out. You don't have to throw him back.
Sean said he would drink an extra for you.
Hey,
mine.
Whatever y'all want to do is fine with me.
Mine is double strength, so I think we're good for both of us. So
there you go.
But
by the way, I like your shirt. Is that a grunt?
That's Black Rifle Coffee Company.
Oh, another good one.
Yeah, I love them. I'm addicted to few things anymore. Coffee and donuts are one of those. So coffee, like not giving that up.
Yeah. I like both of those things. So I'll tell you, one of my favorite things is making grilled cheese sandwiches with leftover donuts.
No, well, that's a whole other level, man. I've never done that.
Yeah, good stuff.
You see the health rating on our show, beer, donuts with grilled cheese.
But in moderation, right? Like in moderation.
Exactly.
Once, twice a week.
Sure, whatever. That's right. Gotta live
so for our listeners, before we get in, I'm going to give you a quick intro. Okay. So it's Jarie. I had to look your name. I had to make sure that Sean and I had to check real quick before we had on, make sure we're pronouncing your name, because you got an interesting pronunciation. Jarie, correct?
It's Jarie, yeah.
Jarie Bolander.
I always tell people, just imagine a jar full of E's, and you'll never mess my name up. So.
So I can imagine you don't have to worry about getting confused with anyone else. I mean, you probably
No.
there's no one out there.
I mean, the three of us are tall white guys with beards. We get lost in the crowd, but with a name like mine, some people think. One time, someone thought I was Indian. Then someone thought I was from Africa.
I could see that.
And then someone else thought I was Canadian because they say it was Yuri, like Yuri, or Jari Curry, right? The old hockey player. Yep. And then occasionally I'll get like they think I'm a woman. So for me, it's like,
wow.
Whatever. Well, they look at the name and they're like,
we don't think you're a woman.
Yeah, I hope not. I'm very.
You can be whatever you want to be.
Yeah,
2021.
I'm in San Francisco. We are who we are. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Free to be you and me. Anyway.
Exactly.
So you're an engineer by training, an entrepreneur by nature. You've got over 20 years of experience in bringing innovative products to the market. Some that include this is cool. Bluetooth, USB, semiconductor, DNA. I mean, that's pretty cool. You've got, so I got to hear about your background in engineering.
Yeah, sure.
And what led you into funnel build or story funnels, which is a cool topic in and of itself. We're going to be talking about that today. And launching your products, launching your business, launching services. So glad to have you on, man.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. Yeah.
Give you some applause.
I love it. Yeah, appreciate that. No, you guys have a great show going on. I mean, over almost 200 episodes or close to 200.
Yeah. We're about to celebrate that 200th here.
That's incredible. Cause I also do a podcast and I just did my 100th episode and I'm like, God, what a lot of work.
That's right. It can be, but we've kind of streamlined things a little.
Yeah.
So Jonathan does like 14 podcasts a week. I don't know how many you got now.
Right. But the secret is to batch them. You're an engineer. It's all like
I'm all about process. So I always tell people like something's going to take the normal human like a half an hour to do. I will spend 8 hours automating it just because I can. Right.
Absolutely.
Why would I not do that? I mean, and I'm not joking. I do that all the time. So
in the long run, it pays off, though.
Yeah. Sure. If I ever have to do it again. But yeah. No.
If McDonald's can to put this to an art, like they've done with their systems, why not podcasting? Why not
with
anything
teenagers?
Else?
Yeah. Teenagers. Exactly. The Mick podcast process. So yeah.
All right.
So we were just rating we were in the middle of rating our beer. We brought you on. So Sean and I are going to go ahead and give our ratings real quick, and then we'll get into the topic at hand. And you can rate your water if you want to.
It's so San Francisco water is from Hetchy Reservoir, best water in the world.
Yep.
Just so you know. So
really,
cheers to that. Yeah, it's a whole history. It's actually really fascinating how we get our water. But anyway.
Wow.
All right.
I feel like you're bragging over there because I'm in Austin. I think we're running out of water over here. So.
Well, yeah. Well, you had that huge, massive storm where like the world shut down, and then
Oh my God! I don't know. Did you see the picture, Jonathan? There was a hailstone like the size of my head.
Wow!
Like 30 minutes from here.
Wow!
You're kidding.
And crazy. I mean, they had hailstones that came through people's roof and landed in the kitchen, like all the way through the roof and the ceiling. Just it was crazy. But then we had the winter storm before that, which is probably what you're talking about, Jarie. So, it's Texas for sure. But
that's caused a lot of supply problems.
Oh yeah,
all over the place. Yeah. I don't care if it's furniture making, car manufacturing, everything.
Yeah.
You don't think about Texas. We depend on Texas. All those refineries.
Damn straight you do.
So it's like, damn, Texas. Why can't you get your act together, man? Just like insulate some stuff.
I know, really.
Who would have known, right? Who would have known?
All right, Sean, give us a rating real quick.
Yes, this is good. So Epic Brewing, Big Bad Baptist Imperial Stout, stout with cocoa nibs, coffee in whiskey barrels, lives up to everything it says. I'm going to give this out of 5. I'm going to give this a 4.5. Just
nice.
Just nice.
I was going to say, could this be another 5?
No, I give it a 4.5. It's a little on the sweet side.
Okay.
Otherwise, I'd bring it up a little bit more, but I could probably only have one of these today, which is good because I only bought one. So.
IPA, Terrapin, the Hopsecutioner. So he gets some points on
Whoa.
branding, name, and then location too, man. That's a big part of it. But IPA, I'm going to give this one actually a 3-1. Sean.
It's pretty good.
3-1 for an IPA. Yeah.
It's good on our show.
Yeah.
All right. Cool.
All right.
Now
So Jarie, tell us, before we get into the topic, man, share a little bit about your background. Tell us how you went from engineer into entrepreneurship, and then ultimately into creating story brands or story
funnel. Yeah.
Story funnels.
Yeah. Story funnels. Well, like all good stories, it starts with a girl.
Okay.
And
a lot of things start there.
A lot of things start there, right? So yeah, I met this woman, Jane, who later became my wife, at, of all things, a gay pride breakfast in San Francisco. So it was amazing that I actually showed up to this thing, but it was for a friend. Actually, that friend now is the mayor of San Francisco, London Breed. And we met, fell in love, and had, this whirlwind romance. And then a little bit over a year after we got married, she got diagnosed with leukemia.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's pretty heavy. She was 34, 35.
That's so young, man.
I know. And normally leukemia, you think young kids or older people. And she had something called acute myeloid leukemia, which was pretty aggressive. And so she ran a PR and marketing company. She's actually a publicist for professional athletes like Marshawn Lynch and Yao Ming and, Carmelo Anthony. Like, she was in the mix on that. And when she got sick, when you have leukemia, you don't have an immune system. And so I was at like a startup. I was at a digital health startup. And she looked at me and she just said, buddy, you need to take my business over because that's the only thing paying us right now. And I'm like, I don't know anything about PR. Like you mentioned before, I was a hardcore engineer. Like the chips in your cell phone, like I used to design the chips in your cell phone. So I'm like semiconductor physics and the whole, it's nutty. And then I went from that to DNA sequencing machines with semiconductors. So like really hardcore stuff that no business being in PR and marketing, like none, like put the guy back in the lab, right? I mean, seriously, just because it's true. But
it is. I work with a lot of engineers. That's exactly pretty much nailed their personality.
Yeah, it's like put the pizza underneath the door and walk away, and they'll grow like a little mushroom. Don't worry about it, right? It's the way it is. But she's like, hey, your startup's not paying you. We need to eat and have money, and I can't go and meet clients. You need to take this over, like now. And so I took her business over, when she was sick, and she was sick for 15 months, and then she died on April 3rd, 2017, which is about a little over 4 years ago. And it turns out I'm good at it. I never knew this, but I'm really good at telling stories about technology companies. And the reason is because I used to invent all this stuff, right? So I intimately understand like what needs to be said. So I literally started doing this and then continued on after she died, and really started to realize, I'm like, wow, like people need to tell better stories about what they build because no one's doing that. And I was around a bunch of startup guys and gals, and I was at all these accelerators, and everyone could nail the tech. But the hardest part about a startup is not the technology, it's the marketing, the sales, the persuade. I mean, how do you get someone to get out of the status quo and buy your silly thing? Like, I mean, honestly, you had this, you had Bill Mueller on the other day about his story sales machine email. Like he got you from an ad, right? And then his emails are beautiful. Well, he's spot on. It's like, that's all that matters. Like the best story wins, hands down, And so just started to realize, oh, well, I could really help these startups, and I'm interested in it. And, I write books and I love just the writing process. Turns out I'm good at it. So yeah, just kind of switched to the dark side, so to speak, and really now help those tech startups and to tell their story in a way that their grandmother can understand it. Because a lot of times they're too complex, or
Yeah.
like
Techies are the worst.
Yeah.
I mean, there's software guys are the worst when they're trying to explain their programming or their some new software that's like really cool that helps you out a ton, but they're like the worst at telling you how to use it sometimes.
Yeah. Or they assume that you know what they're talking about. And you're like,
right.
I mean, I know what I'm doing. I've done what you've done before, and I have no clue what you're talking about.
Right.
You have a problem that you need to solve,
Mm-hmm.
Here's this 12-step program. I mean, not that. I mean, there's a process that we go through. And so over time, over these last 4 or 5 years, I've started to kind of document my process, since I'm an engineer and I love process. Right. And that sort of morphed in this thing called the story funnel. And really what the story funnel is about how to nail your next launch or your launch of your company, without wasting a bunch of money, annoying customers, and creeping features. And anyone that knows anything about software engineers, or even engineers in general, they love tweaking stuff. We used to call it polishing the turd. It's like, can you polish the turd anymore? You know what I mean? It's like, and then we also used to say, shoot the engineer and ship it. That was another one we would say a lot.
Yeah. And that's a good one. I love that. I'm gonna have to remember that one,
because it's true.
Yeah.
I mean, an engineer by nature, by what we're trained to do is solve problems. Mm-hmm. So if you're an engineer and there's no problems, therefore you have no job. So what do? You always look for problems. That's your job, to fix problems. Yeah. And once you realize that, then you're like, okay, now are you really worried about it, or are you really worried about it? So,
I totally get though that as a copywriter though, like to just finally ship it. Cause same thing with writing, you can always make it better, just a little bit better, a little bit better verb, a little bit better, whatever, a little bit better metaphor. Oh, I could do this here, cut this here. And yeah, you can waste half your life tweaking and not getting it out there. So I totally get that.
Yeah. It's all about, and this whole process, right? It's all about iteration too. So it's like a kind of like a growth flywheel, so to speak. So we're all about do something, see what happens, adjust. And it's a continuous thing, especially anyone that knows anything about software development or, SaaS companies or any kind of technology company. It's never done. It's just the next thing to do, the next launch or whatever. And what we found, since I've done this a lot, is that if you've got a framework, and more importantly, if you get your story straight about how to do this, then you focus on the right things. And, as an example, I'm glad you brought up the copywriting thing, because a lot of times the copywriting thing, I mean, because you're experienced, but you don't really know what works until you try it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's the beautiful part about all of this. It's like, it's a very scientifically driven thing, because it's an experiment, and every bit of copy is an experiment. Every marketing message, everything of persuasion, like what you guys talk about, it's an experiment. And does it work? Does it not? Oh, I guess we should figure something out.
Yeah. So talking about kind of creating that story, I'm on your JSY PR site, and I see the process there on the homepage. And that first step that I see on the right, develop a narrative and positioning. I know for myself as a copywriter running a marketing agency, if you don't get this part right, everything else can go in a million directions. But if you get it right, everything else gets faster and easier down the line.
Oh yeah.
So what I'm curious about is what you've discovered, doing this from a PR perspective and an engineer's perspective, about how to find that and how to find that clear thing that moves people.
Yeah, no, that's a very, very astute question. And I actually get asked this a lot, because for a lot of people, it's very nebulous, partly because the people I talk to are mostly techie, and they're like, well, I can write any bit of code you want, but I don't know how to talk about it. So,
I mean, just interrupt real quick. Like, I've worked at some pretty high level, places with copywriters, and they have this thing called the big idea, right?
Yep.
Ogilvy's talked about it.
Yep.
And even in those circles, like some of the best copywriters in the world, it's still nebulous.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's just like people who are foreign to marketing have this problem. I think this is like a problem. So I'm definitely leaning in to hear what you have to say about if you figured out a process for this. I'm going to box it up.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think that's part of what I'm trying to work on and work through with the story funnel. So one of the inspirations for the story funnel was something called the story grid, which is a methodology to write books. It was invented by Sean Coyne. He happens to be the editor of Stephen Pressfield. You guys know Stephen Pressfield. So
cool.
they're buddies, right?
Mm-hmm.
Great. He's a great guy. And he wrote this book called The Story Grid, which is this right here. And and if you read the under, it says what good editors know, right? So what do good editors know? Well, the fundamental thing that you have to like believe in your heart is that stories have structure.
Mm-hmm.
We've been telling stories for thousands of years. We're all here talking on StreamYard because our ancestors told better stories.
Yeah.
That's it. That's all. The best story wins. Great brands tell great stories. So fundamentally, how do we tell a great story? Well, if you read the story grid and you read guys like, Sugarman, which I know you guys got a bunch of books, and then this one that you guys didn't have on, which is Gary C. Halbert, which you have to put on your list because it's the best book ever.
Absolutely.
I've got the edition with the torn off cover.
Oh, cool. And then there's this one, of course.
Man, Sean, this guy's like following all of the books we talk about.
So a lot of times people are like, "Oh, you're a writer," and I go, "Yeah, I'm a writer. I write. I get paid to write. I don't get paid for praise, right? People pay me to write. So whatever you all doing, I'm like, take notes, okay, because it's how I eat." And so, but what's interesting is that if you kind of look at story and story as structure, then you'll notice that there's brands. Generally, the best brands in the world have something called core values. And these core values are akin to a genre of a book. And so if you read the story grid stuff, there's a bunch of different content genres. And then I took that and I said, well, brands have a core value. And if you can understand a brand's core value and you can adhere to the core value, then you can talk about the big idea, which you just talked about, Sean. And then you can figure out the through line, which everyone knows in a story is like from beginning to end. So from a prospect to a customer to an advocate, what's the story? What's the arc? What's the through line to get the ultimate goal of any of this? Any marketing, any persuasion is to have like you, Sean, and you, Jonathan, say, "Oh, Jarie, he's a great guy. You need to have him on your show. You need to buy his book." That's the ultimate. That's what every copywriter wants, right? Oh, you see this email? I forwarded on. Like what Bill, like, hey, this email is great. Like, I'm probably going to go buy Bill's stuff because of you guys, what you guys said, right? So you need to figure out first and foremost, what's the core value of the brand? And I've identified 10 core values. And there's a process to go through what these core values are. And it's interesting because it's not kind of what you think is the mission, vision, and values of a company, sort of the, like the culture. It's the value that the customer perceives. And most SaaS companies, most software companies, they have a performance value, right? It's better, faster, cheaper than someone else, and it makes you better. So if you have a brand like that, there are just certain things that have to be there, right? If I'm going to be better, faster, cheaper, then you have to prove to me that using your tool, your product is going to make me better, faster, cheaper.
Right.
And also you need to understand emotionally, what's the pain that I'm thinking about. So when it comes to the core value, you kind of figure out the core value. And then the second thing, what you mentioned, was the big idea. What's the big idea? And the big idea, like any good story, has got three parts. There's why this company exists. And this is the internal why, like, like we exist to, like make the world better or whatever. There's the uniqueness. Why am I unique in the world? Because everyone's unique, right? You're unique like everyone else, but there's one thing that you're unique on. And then the thing that's the most important is, what pain do you solve? Because all people that are looking to buy something are looking to solve a problem. They want to perform, they want to do a job, but they also have pain that they're trying to get rid of.
Right.
And so as you kind of think about this, it's like, oh, I've got a core value. That core value has to be consistent throughout all of my messaging. My big idea is the top of the top. It's the high ground of where I'm sitting. Everything manifests itself from the big idea. This is like your 10-second elevator pitch.
Right.
And then the next part is the through line. What's the through line? How are you going to hook a prospect to take a look at your offering? And hooking is through emotion. Like, what's the emotional appeal? And then how do I make a customer? Okay, they've hit buy. Well, I want that experience to be so easy and transparent that they're like, wow, that was easy. I love these guys, right there. Yeah. This is awesome, right? And then the final part, which is the most important part, which I don't think a lot of people spend enough time on, is what do I want an advocate to say about my brand? So, with you guys, persuasion by the pint, if someone says, hey, Jarie, what do you think of those guys? What do you want me to say? Because ultimately, if I can make more advocates, I win. And right. I don't have to spend any money on ads. Look at Tesla. They don't spend any money on ads and PR. Mm-mm. One example, right? Because, people love them. Why? They built these advocates. So yeah, that framework is kind of the basis of it. And then there's a lot of other things around it. But fundamentally, it's grounded in getting your story straight so that your entire launch team and your entire team is all kind of singing from the same hymnal. Because as you mentioned, Sean, sometimes even the copywriters don't know what to write, or the marketing people, they're like confused, and you're like, yeah. what do you mean? You kind of get that all squared away, then it's easy to do your job.
So where do you look for that? So you walk into a company, you've never heard of this company before. Where do you start poking and prodding, looking for those pieces? So we can start with maybe the through line. Like in copywriting, we would call, at least where I was trained, we would call that the golden thread. Mm-hmm. It's kind of exactly. Winds through the whole thing.
Right.
Yeah. Like, where do you start? What do you look for first? And then how do you find it? It's one thing to say, hey, we look at core values, blah, blah, blah. But how do you actually uncover those in a company?
Yeah. So the way I normally do this is I talk with the founding team and the people that are doing the work. And usually I start with the founders, and I'm like, so, why exactly did you start this company? And not because I want to get rich, and not because fame, fortune, and prestige. Like, what was it that you're going to spend your valuable time doing something with a low probability of success? Because all startups are low probability. I mean, startups are bound to fail. Just full stop. Like, it's crazy to even do this job. Entrepreneur? What are you, idiot? Go get a corporate gig if you really want to, but I can't drink bad corporate coffee. So I have to do what I do. So through this discussion of, okay, why did you do it? What are some of the real reasons why? You start to pull on these threads of the emotional appeal to this problem. And a lot of times the founder of a company, especially a technical company, is like, well, I had this problem and no one had a solution for it. Like, oh, okay. So you're scratching your own itch. It's like, okay, well, is this thing that you've built, does anyone care? Like, does anyone really care? And so depending on the stage of the company, I like to say, okay, well, what are your customers? Do you have any customers? What do they say about it? And through this process, it's sort of an iterative approach. But what's interesting is that customers will tell you why they bought something, especially if they paid money for it. And it will most of the time, it's like totally different than what you thought. You're like, oh, wow. You mean you're solving that problem with it? And then it's an iterative process of formulating some language around these core values and around this through line. And really we start with, okay, the emotional appeal. Like, when you think of this problem, what are the feelings that come up? And it's literally could be any feeling. It doesn't matter. Like, don't have to be, you could be pretty, graphic about, oh, boy, I get this pit in my stomach every time I have to I'll give you a perfect example for me. I get a pit in my stomach every time I have to outreach to get media or talk to a reporter or, call someone about getting on something. The pit in my I just hate it. And I'm a PR person. This is crazy, right? Yeah. I hate it. So my real pain is I don't like it. I get a stomach ache. It's painful. It's random. It's depressing when you get rejected, all these sort of things. So there's a company that I just got connected with and I actually buy their product. It's called Respana. And Respana is all about outreach, automated outreach. And their whole tagline is, don't spam, build relationships. And the Farzad's the CEO. And I'm like, oh, I need this. Because he literally grabbed at my core and shook it and said, the thing you hate to do, I can help you do it better.
Sure.
And then through that process, you got to go through the feeling process. And that's the most important part, because we are, those emotions are what's going to make us do something. It's not going to be logic. As Sugarman said, we buy an emotion, we justify on logic. That's pretty hardcore, in our DNA. So, once you know the hook, the hook, that first part of the story of a 3-act story, that hook, then kind of the rest of it sort of follows on, because what happens is you then can follow the thread of a couple of different customers or an advocate. Another way to do it is find someone that loves what you do and back out how they got to where how come they love you so much.
Yeah.
And, everyone has those super fans. You're like, gosh, man, every time I post something, you're like, share.
Well, let's use an example. So Apple's they're the designated punching bag on our show, because we talk about them all the time.
Exactly.
But Sean and I
trying to get our money's
Apple.
Worth. That's why, because we spent so freaking much money.
I got all the Apple crap. Yeah.
Exactly.
So Sean and I got hooked a long time ago when I feel like their marketing was spot on, their storytelling was spot on. I don't know what their storytelling is nowadays. I can't figure it out. But the thing about it is we don't care, because Sean and I got hooked a long time ago when their stories were really good, and we can't get off because we're drug addicts on the stuff. So, we've been using it for so long. I just got the, recent MacBook, and it's their stuff is phenomenal. It's all of their technology is great. So I don't know if you're a Mac user or not. I find it interesting. Oh, you are? Okay. Because a lot of engineers are I find it interesting if you go the split down engineers.
His PR side bought the Mac.
Well,
because a lot of engineers that I know drift towards PC. They're like,
it depends on the type, right? So I was doing a lot of data analysis.
Sure.
And I had to log into a bunch of Unix machines or Linux machines, right? And the one company I was at, all the software engineers use Macs.
Okay.
So I'm an engineer working on building chips, and I'm like, well, you know what? I'm going to have to talk to those guys a lot, because it was all about data and all that. And I'm like, What are you guys using? They're like, oh, we're using this MacBook Pro. I'm like, I want that. And so now I'm hooked.
Yeah, exactly.
So going back to their storytelling, back in the days of Steve Jobs, using examples like 1,000 songs in your pocket. That's the ultimate story right there, just summed up in just a few words. And they were so good, down to some of the commercials that they did. Sean and I talked about some of the, Mac versus PC and everything. They were just so good at storytelling. But could you identify today what their story is? Because if I were someone who's trying to make a decision today, based on which way I want to go, or if I wanted to be a Mac user, I couldn't tell you, if their story or their story, funnel or their marketing would work for me, because I don't get it.
Yeah, no. They've built up a lot of goodwill over the last 40 years or something. Sure. So everyone, Apple, anything, iPad, iPhone, iMac is sort of like a universal term now. Mm-hmm. Kind of like what Band-Aid used to be, right? Oh,
Yeah.
I need a Band-Aid. Oh no, it was, that was brand name, right? Or
right.
aspirin or whatever.
That's
right.
right.
Well, for me, when I look at Apple as an example, the core values that come up to me is that it's definitely a performance brand.
Mm-hmm.
You'll do better, faster, cheaper. Better and faster, not necessarily cheaper, right?
Better, more expensive.
Better, more expensive, and it's the feeling. But the one that really resonates with me now is it's a status brand.
Yeah.
It's like a Rolex. It's like a BMW. It's like a Ferrari. Like, you really don't need it, but you feel better, and when you show it off, people think you're cool.
Mm-hmm.
Mac versus PC is a classic example of status.
Yeah.
Do I want to be the nerd, or do I want to be the cool guy in the t-shirt?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so
definitely one of the best series of ads.
Oh yeah,
all time.
yeah,
all time.
And, and their 1984 ad, when they're the George Orwell thing, when they're throwing, the think different, the whole, they want to be perceived as, if you use a Mac, you're creative and cool. You're at a different level. Be part of the team. It's a tool, and don't get me wrong, like, the standard of quality has to be there to justify the price. But yeah, I could do the same thing with a PC or a Linux box that I do, but the experience wouldn't be the same. Sure. And it's like, it's a little bit of a cachet. So,
well, it's interesting. That's still true, even though I don't think they do as good of a job at it anymore, because Microsoft's current ads for their Surface, it's a young kid, and he's kind of doing the same thing, right? He's like, here's the features of this, but it's very like features based and price based, not. But they're usually a young, cool kid to try to make, but they're still fighting that same battle.
Oh yeah, Microsoft just doesn't get it. Yeah. Like, I'm shocked that features and functions, who gives a shit? Honestly, I don't care. Yeah. Like, can I get on StreamYard and can I plug in my Blue Yeti microphone and go? Can I get on Zoom? Like, oh, really? Features, functions, band, blah, blah. I mean, I'm an engineer. I don't care. Most people don't care. Does it work? iPhone, best example. iPhone versus Android, right? I have an iPhone. My mom and dad have an Android. And they're like, hey, can you fix my Android? And I look at it, I go, I got no idea what the hell's going on with this thing. It's clunky. Yeah. It's not polished. It doesn't feel like it's designed for me. And I think that's the other thing that Apple gets right. So
that's definitely a core value, right? Jobs said that a long time ago.
Right.
Started with his calligraphy class. Everything was about the look and the style and the beauty and all that. Yeah. And they've done that. I mean, even to the point, and that is such a core value that they're willing to offend their core buyers by taking away USB ports and turn them into something else, because they see how that makes things simpler, better in the future.
Right.
And maybe 3 to 5 years in the future sometimes.
Yeah, because initially the backlash that you get, I mean, you're absolutely right. You pissed off a lot of people, but
you take the phone port away, but now what's everybody got?
Right.
They've got their headphones that are wireless, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
After those went out of style, and then now they've come back in thanks to Apple. Right.
Or they took away the RJ47, whatever the old microphone or the old headphone jack.
Yeah.
Gone.
Yeah.
Like, oh no, I got to buy this stupid little thing and whatever. But
and now you're on your third pair of AirPods, the AirPods Pro.
Yeah, it is definitely a conspiracy to buy more Apple stuff.
Oh, that's for sure.
I'm pretty sure.
And it works.
Yeah, no, it does, because I'm hooked. Why would I buy a PC?
And down the road, like, every time they've made a change like that, and I've been upset about it, the user experience has been better once I adopted it.
Sure. Mm-hmm. Yep.
That's what's
crazy.
And
it goes back to that Steve Jobs, back in the day, he didn't get, he didn't do a lot of marketing research. He's like, this is what we're going to design. And I think people are going to like it.
I mean, who was it? Henry Ford that said, if you ask people what they want, they'd say a faster horse.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah,
exactly.
It's totally true. When innovation happens, it's alchemy. It's magic. It's not anything other than that.
So when a tech, let's think of, hypotheticals, or an example would be a tech company comes to you when they're trying to, launch, where do you start with on their story? what's the first place that you begin with?
I try to work with the team and figure out their core values and their big idea.
Okay.
That's independent of their technology, independent of kind of what they're doing. Like, why would anyone care? Like, what makes you unique? Why should anyone even bother spending their precious time?
Can you you mentioned earlier, there's like, you've kind of identified like 10 core values. Can you give an example of a few? You don't have to do all 10, but can you give an example of a few of them?
So like the top kind of 3 for brands generally are performance, right? Better, faster, or cheaper. Status, look at me, I'm cool, right? Mm-hmm. Merriment, literally a merriment brand is like that dopamine hit when you take it and it's fleeting. It's like beer. It's like the merriment brand or whatever. McDonald's is an example. And then there's brands that are like maverick brands, like all about freedom and independence. Best example is like Harley Davidson, right? Like, you don't need a Harley Davidson. You sort of want to be in the in crowd, but they're literally about freedom, like unencumbered freedom. Mm-hmm. And so those are like 4 of them. And there's other ones like morality and worldview being like education, like I'm going from being ignorant to being wise. And then there's a couple of other ones that relate to things like, more carnal, bottom of the pyramid, Maslow hierarchy of needs, like humanity, like life and death type stuff. Like, again, not a lot of tech brands are worried about life and death, but like the Red Cross is, sure. Or, mm-hmm. Those are like Doctors Without Borders. And so, but for tech companies, it's usually a combination of performance and status, sometimes worldview. And then there's another one that the name escapes me of, but it's all about it's like belonging. Mm-hmm. So social media is all about belonging. There's no performance in Facebook. It's either I want to belong to a group and look at me. And that's
probably anti-performance, if anything.
Yeah, right. And so these core values these are the emotions that we feel when we see them. So you see a Rolex, it's like, wow, what a beautiful thing. Boy, that guy must be rich. You see someone using a MacBook. Oh, wow, like he's pretty cool, right? That for a tech company is the thing they've got to get right. Because a lot of times a tech company will just think it's all about the tech. And then they'll go down the path of, oh, well, we're just cheaper than blah. And you're like, yeah, you can't really compete on price. Like, you don't want to go all the way down in the dirt on price. Why would you do that? Like, then it's an arms race to the bottom. Mm-hmm. Yeah. We need to be able to really understand like why someone will just say, take my money, just here, take it, solve my problem.
Right.
Yeah, I think Simon Sinek explained this kind of the same thing in the Start With Why speech that was so famous 10 or 12 years ago, and Apple versus, I don't think he actually said a name, but if Dell maybe, here in Austin, like it's a huge company, wildly successful, but nobody talks about Dell. Like it's just like
only when Michael Dell says, something silly.
Yeah,
sure.
Or maybe he donates a big check to somebody like a charity or something, right?
Right.
That's right. As a product, like you almost forget they exist, and they do good work and they make good stuff, but there's just nobody's getting a Dell tattoo for sure.
Unless you're Michael Dell, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
No, you're absolutely right. It's not like Elon Musk where every time he posts a tweet, it's like, it's like moves mountains. People are, stocks, people buy more shares of stock or they dump more shares of stock depending on what he says. So
yeah, look at Zoom, look at Slack,
right?
Look at even eBay. Like these are like the household words. Like once you become a meme, and you're like Google is like it's a verb, adjective.
Right.
Like it's no longer identified. Like, oh, I'm going to Google it. You're like, oh, well, you've kind of jumped the chasm, right?
Right.
Zoom is the same way. Slack, any of these things that you just, and it's interesting because you're right. There are great companies that do great work. Remember Gateway computers back in the day? It's like kind of cool, but then, okay, it's a cow, it's Midwest. All right, whatever, but do good work, but they're not memorable.
Yeah.
And in today's world,
and their products were crap too. So
yeah, you gotta have good products too. But I mean, in today's world, like our attention span's getting less and less.
Mm-hmm.
We're absolutely inundated with messaging that's so overwhelming that in order to really rise above the noise, you have to be unique and have a voice and have a personality, and it has to be part of your brand, or no one's going to care. I mean, literally, like, who cares, right? And so I always ask people that too. It's like, well, why would anyone care about this?
Yeah.
So,
well, there's so much noise out there. So, one of the things you talk about, it's like we're inundated with marketing messages every day. But you've got, like, when I was reading some of your copy over at the story funnel, it says, hooking prospects, getting above the noise with emotional appeals, scan, read, action, the idea of catching a prospect's eye quickly, engaging a story that helps them do a job, and then simple actions to take them to learn more. Right. So, I mean, those are three key takeaways. You kind of summarize those, but, if people realize, the whole point is to, capture somebody's attention really quickly, take them to, get to the point, tell a story, and tell them what to do next. Right. I mean, like, if you're still interested, like, here's what you should do.
Yeah, no, you're totally right. And I'm so glad you brought that up, because what I tell people all the time is the most important question that someone could ask you is, tell me more.
Yeah.
When you get someone to tell me more, now they're engaged.
Right.
And you're not wasting their time. So when I look at, like, this whole, what I call the top of the funnel, or the kind of the stage, or the, stages and phases of the story funnel, that hook part, where I'm going to hook someone in, I want to be so specific. I want to hit the emotion, and I literally want them to say, oh, tell me more. Because then I have permission to tell them more. If they don't want anything, then, hey, you know what? Maybe next time. Like, I don't even want to waste my time. And you see this even with, like, on a sales call as an example. Like, so let's say you're setting up a bunch of sales calls. You would rather know within the first 5 minutes if this is going to go anywhere or not.
Right.
For both of you. Like, and I think from my perspective, I don't want to waste people's time that aren't interested in what I have to offer. Right. And the burden's on me to figure that out. And then when they engage, I need to tell them a story. I need to take them on a journey. I need to be useful. I need to be entertaining. I mean, I need to continue to capture their attention, or they're literally going to be like a goldfish and go away. Like, oh, what happened? Shiny object, like squirrel. Oh,
sure.
Like people do that all the time. So, yeah, I think it's probably when I look up Bill's stuff, which I'm actually going to buy. So you guys hopefully should get a commission from Bill on his awesome stuff.
It's good stuff.
Yeah. My guess is it's like, have a simple, good story and a simple call to action, like one thing to do. What's the one thing you need to do? As opposed to some of the emails I get, I get constantly pitched for lots of things. They're rambling kind of thing about, like, what am I supposed to do? Like, help me help you. Like,
right.
And I think that's another very important thing, especially in that emotional appeal part. I'm sure you guys, like, the lead of a story, as an example, like, probably spend hours crafting the lead, that subject, right? Like, that's the art of this. How can I capture someone's attention, and I want them to literally say, oh, yeah, tell me more, Jarie. What do you think?
Right. So let me ask you, from your own business and your own clients, what do you think is the most successful example of that hook that you've done for somebody?
So I used to work for a company called Sutro Connect, and it is a automated water testing robot. So imagine a Roomba for your pool that tests your water. So if you guys have a pool, you absolutely have to check out Sutro. And the thing about owning a pool, anyone on the line that owns a pool, the worst part of owning a pool is testing the stupid water.
Yeah.
Because it's like, I have to have a PhD in chemistry to look at the little thing and drop it in. And if you're like, okay, you can either do that or you can hire a pool boy or pool guy or pool gal. And then you're like, well, why is my pool green? You know, like it's a chemistry experiment in your backyard. And if you have a family and you happen to be, you know, of looking like us, the male persuasion, tall white guys with beards, your partner will be super pissed off if the pool is not ready for her and the family to enjoy. And so there's a huge motivation for the DIY pool guy or gal, mostly guys, to not make their pool green. And so Sutro, we came up with this really great hook, and it's an emotional appeal, right? Because it's like a boat. The happiest day of the two happiest days of a boat owner's life, the day he buys it and the day he sells it, right? And in between is like a money pit.
Yeah. Yep.
So we're like,
spot on.
Right. So we're like, okay, you know what? We want you to love your pool again.
Mm-hmm.
Because everyone wants their pool to be safe and ready for a swim, especially like you're in Austin or you're in the, you know, Florida, whatever. Yep. And that hook, that connection, and it says nothing to do about testing your water, all that. It was all, oh, well, how do I love my pool again?
Yeah.
And then it just opens up this whole thing. Okay, we've got the smart water ecosystem. We can automatically test your pool chemistry. We can recommend chemicals. Do you need a pool guy? You know, like, I got your back. But it starts from the big idea is we know you hate your pool deep down because it's a chemistry experiment that you don't want to screw up. And God forbid you screw it up before a big barbecue, right? Like we're coming into pool season. You know, pool season opens on Memorial Day, no, Labor Day, or whatever. One of those days. It's in
Memorial,
May. Yeah. And then it closes on the other one, Labor Day in September or whatever. So we're coming up on pool season. Like, you know, and that just resonated with people. And and it was a beautiful, like, it said nothing about what we did.
Yeah, say it again.
So Sutro Connect, right? Love your pool or spa again was the tagline.
Love your pool again. Okay.
Yeah,
so simple. I mean, it's so simple. And I work with copywriters all the time, and I'm like, the headline is not what you think it is. Like it's like the really good ones are not going to be the formulas that you've been taught and the swipe files you bought and everything else. They're going to come from somewhere else. And like, I do an example with people, like when I'm trying to get them to see this, there's a moment in your prospect's day, your ideal prospect's day, where they're sitting on the edge of the bed, one shoe on, one shoe. And I heard this from John Ford, who's a great copywriter, one shoe on, one shoe off, wondering, do they have to go through this day again? Or do they have to do X again? Right. Sure. So like, you can see this guy on the edge of his couch. He's watching the game, but he knows he's got to go clean the pool. He's been putting it off all week, but his daughter's having all her friends are coming over. Yep. She's a teenage girl. She doesn't want to be embarrassed. She's been nagging him all week. So he's got like one shoe on, his pool cleaning shoes. And he has this huge sign. He's like, I do not want to go clean the pool.
Yeah.
But I don't want to listen to my daughter and my wife complain either. I hate this thing.
Mm-hmm. Oh, right? Yeah. You can so put yourself in that guy's situation.
Yeah. You know, it's the same thing with cutting your lawn or whatever it is, like getting your oil changed.
I mean,
whatever
it
might be.
The Roomba is a good example of that. Like, I don't want to vacuum the house. Well, it's a robot that vacuums your house. But and so that emotion, so this is the thing. That emotion you have to tap into. Mm-hmm. So the majority of DIY pool people are men between the ages of 35 and 65 because they're somewhat tech savvy and stuff. But that's the hardest part about owning a pool, keeping the water chemistry right so that you don't burn your eyes. You don't.
But you didn't have to mention that in the headline, right?
No.
Because you know the pain.
We know the pain. And so, but this is the thing. It's, and I'm glad you brought this up because it's really not like what you do. It's how you make them feel.
Right. So it's not, who else wants a cleaner, brighter pool? Right. I mean, that's
everyone.
Like, yeah.
Who wants to be taller and better looking with no gray hair in their beard. Oh, that would be me. I mean, yeah, okay. No.
Or how to make sure your pH is, 7.0 in 3 easy steps. Like, nobody cares.
Yeah. Like, that's the mechanics. That's the logic. That's the logos of it. Of course, we want to know.
That's 3 or 4 subheads down.
Right. Exactly. Because you have to prove it to people. You know what you're doing.
Right. And
it happens that Sutro knows what they're doing. They actually have a very revolutionary way to do it. They actually use what's called the little droplets that you used to put in the little water if you've ever done it. Yeah. They do that inside the robot. So they literally do chemistry inside the robot to titrate, so they know exactly they have the proper pH, the proper chlor. I mean, like, it's legit. It's like a little lab in your thing, but who gives a shit?
Yeah, right.
I want to love my pool again so my wife won't yell at
That's
me.
right.
So maybe on date night, she'll smile at me and go like, yeah, that's what I want. I mean, or my daughter not to yell at me, or, oh, dad, so.
Yeah. When I look at a golf club, I want like to shave some strokes off. I don't care about all the engineering that went into this particular, wedge that's supposed to give me more loft or more distance.
Doesn't really matter.
I don't care.
Yeah, I mean, here's your next headline, Jarie, for this company: how to get laid on Saturday night.
So I laugh because it's true. We can't say things like that, in the copy. But
you can hint at it, though. You can figure out a way to hint at it.
It's implied in having a crystal clear pool.
Exactly.
But yeah, it is. And again, it's like knowing who your target customer is, knowing their journey, knowing their pain, really understanding them, and then understanding the kind of the stakeholders around them, like what's driving them. For a PR and marketing person, as an example, like using Respana, Farzad's company, they know my job's to outreach to people and try to get people in like TechCrunch and Wall Street Journal, whatever, as well as go out to bloggers, get on podcasts or whatever. It's an absolute pain in the butt. They know that because they've lived it. And so they add part of the story, this whole thing about no spam relationship, don't spam, build relationships. Yeah, I want to build relationships with people because that's my job. Like a good PR and marketing person, it's all about the relationships. And yeah, don't want to spam people. I really want to, build a connection so that we can have a working relationship that's beneficial to everyone. So it's interesting that like when you like train, younger copywriters and I, talk to entrepreneurs, it's similar. They are always very like, well, this is the problem I'm solving mechanically, like do step A, do step B. But what's the emotion? What's the peace of mind? What's the like, this is, gosh, it feels so much better. This is taken care of. Yeah. That core emotion is really important. And that comes down to the core value. Like, what are you really trying to do? So.
Yeah. I mean, that just when you did that, I was like, first thing that came to mind is like, you're either trying to get a sigh or eliminate a sigh in their life.
Very good. I like that. Right? I like that.
There's the sigh of, I don't want to do it. And then there's a sigh of relief.
Yeah.
So which one are you? That. That's good. That'd be a good starter. Like, are you trying to get rid of somebody's like, are you trying to get like Febreze, right? They did all kinds of testing and they finally found out that it wasn't anything other than like that final flourish. If you read the Febreze story, they couldn't figure out how to market it. They did all these studies and they brought people in and they finally saw, and they do this in all the commercials now. Once they spray it, there's this moment at the end, right?
Yeah.
It's a little bit of satisfaction.
The cherry on top.
Yes, the cherry on top. It's like, yes, done.
Boy.
And eliminating a sigh or creating a sigh of relief.
I'm totally stealing that. That's awesome. That's in the next book. That is definitely in the next book.
I might write that down myself.
That's in the next book. Hold on. Let me write this down.
Photo cred.
Yeah. Hey, I steal like an artist, but I give credit. So
there you go.
Create a sigh or
Eliminate a side.
Eliminate a side.
We need to come up with an acronym for that, Jarie, because
Yeah.
acronyms work better.
Oh yeah, no, they're the best. It's kind of
Yeah.
like, all the copywriting out, ones like,
Yeah.
which one I can't totally escape to right now. Well, that's why I came up with the story funnel, because it's sort of, it feels right. Cause like the thing between sales and marketing, like they hate each other. And so in order to appeal to sales, it's like, well, it's a funnel. And in order to appeal to marketing, it's a story.
Yeah.
Right.
Silly.
Yeah.
Create a side or eliminate a side. Okay. I'm going to come up with an acronym for that.
Yeah. We'll work on that.
And I'll definitely gonna put it in. I will put it in the book, whenever I write the book, and then I'll also give it, Sean says.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's awesome.
I'm glad somebody took it down, because I usually have this kind of stuff and it just comes out and I never mark
Just
it down.
throw it out.
So,
Yeah.
so just
Now we have it on video. We have it recorded on audio.
Hey, it's everywhere. It's everywhere.
It's everywhere.
So,
It's going to be a meme. Like you just got to figure out the meme.
exactly.
Because I really, you hit on it. Now that the more I think about it, you nailed it. That's like at the core. That's like at the core of love your pool or spa again. It's like, I love it. Yeah. Oh man, it's so much easier.
Yeah, it's like,
I love that.
Before you find, what was the company's name again? I already forgot.
Sutro.
Sutro. Before you find them, you've got this sigh of like, I don't want to do it. This like, anticipation.
My pool.
Yeah.
God, I don't want to do this.
And then after you find them, there's a sigh of relief. It's all taken care of. Like, that's cool. That's the moment everybody listening has to find, is the moment between those two sides.
Ooh,
that's what we're looking for.
Yeah, it's the dash between the side. Oh, I love it.
I hope people stayed 1 hour and 5 minutes to get that.
It's like that Scott McCreery song, The Dash, right? I mean, it's like it's such a good idea. Okay, offline, we're going to figure out how to
package that. Yeah.
Package that for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think I'll wrap with this because we're getting long on time here, but I think your site, I'm looking at the JSYPR.com. I think you kind of do the same thing on your site. You've got that clear, concise, and compelling storytelling that inspires. Mm-hmm. So if somebody's like, I think the clear and concise, first of all, you got 3 hard C's. So that's a win right there. Right. Yeah. So, I mean, it's like Coca-Cola.
I have read books like this, and I'm going to read all the books that you have.
Yes. Whole shelf back here. Jonathan's got shelves full.
Boron letters. That's no joke, man.
That's legitly cool. I love that one.
Yeah. But I mean, that, clear, concise, and compelling storytelling that inspires. Only thing I would add is action at the end, but that would be me.
Inspires action. Yeah.
Because
that's a good one.
I was left hanging like, inspires what? So,
yeah.
But yeah, it's like, it's enough to say, which is what Sugarman's book's all about. It's like, just get them to the next line. And that's another thing I have to tell I told a copywriter this week, you're doing too much in this email. All you want them to do is click through. You don't have to sell the next page. The next page sells the next page.
Absolutely.
Just sell this click. That's all you're selling. Sell the next step, not 3 steps down the road.
Yep. Yeah. 100%. I mean, I thank you for that very kind, analysis of the landing page. I used Sugarman's method to do it, by the way.
Yeah.
And every time I work with clients, when we're looking at like landing pages and other things, we'll always do what we call a Sugarman, which is, let's just write it like it would be like a magazine ad. Mm-hmm. And Ogilvy does that too, and even Gary Halbert with his stuff. It's like, let's just write it like it's a letter, and then see where it goes. And I mean, it's
if you think about a
way.
homepage or a page, a landing page, if you want to call it that, it really is a modern day space ad, right? It's just you scroll instead of just it's all there in front of you, but it's got a pack. Unfortunately, you can scroll forever, which I think is a downside. That's what made space ads so good back in the day. And even today, when you see them, if they're still out there, there's a few in like Sky Mall and some of the big magazines, and those things cost $30,000 to $50,000 a month. They better work, but you're constrained and you're forced. That was the beauty of old school direct mail, space ads. you were constrained and you had to get your message down.
Mhm.
And I think we missed that in the digital age because you can scroll forever.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you can think of that as a space ad, that homepage or whatever landing page, so much more powerful for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That's the way I try to think about it. And I always try to do at least one of those. Let's just try it.
Yeah.
And I think you're right. I think the constraint is what makes you more creative. And that's why I love all these old copywriter. I have the other one. I don't know if you guys have it, the Claude Hopkins one. That's a great one too. My life in advertising and then scientific advertising.
Yeah.
Right?
Scientific, yeah.
And you read through some of his stuff, and this was like what, 1900s?
Yeah, 1920s, I think, is when he was at his heyday.
Yeah, and you're reading through it, and one of them was like he was selling this tonic to make you feel better, and I'm like, holy shit, that's exactly what people. It's like a MLM.
Yeah,
100 years ago.
That's right. That's right.
And it's like this stuff good copywriting, good communications, good persuasion stands the test of time.
That's right.
Right.
Just replace tonic with essential oils, and you're
or hemp or cannabis or whatever, right? I mean, drop in name here, but this is the beautiful thing, which I really love about one, what you guys are doing, talking about all this, and two, all these great people that have written stuff. And one of the reasons I'm, doing this and trying to write a book about it, because all this learning just kind of hones your craft, because you are a craftsman. It's like a blue collar job. You have to put words to the page.
Mm-hmm.
You get paid to write. You don't get paid to get praise.
Right.
Like, you could have your fancy literary novel. Okay, whatever. But how are you going to sell more widgets?
Yep.
Yeah.
And what works. It pretty much stands the test of time.
So Jarie, I want you first to, I'm gonna give you a recommendation, and I want you to tell us where people can find out more about you.
Sure.
But this is kind of one of those books that a lot of people overlook or don't even know exist, and it's Being Direct by Lester Wunderman.
Being Direct.
And I think Wunderman is with a U, WUNDR. So he came up with the Tape of the Month Club or Record of the Month Club.
Oh,
he
yeah.
Came up with
The Columbia CD guy.
Yeah. He did 1-800-Flowers, I think, was his
oh,
deal.
Wow. Cool.
He's got some of the best CTAs and call to action type and offer structures of anybody in the history of direct response. Just phenomenal read. It's a story type book too, you kind of get his whole life story as he goes through. And then the other thing I would recommend to you, that's not copywriting, but it's writing and thinking about writing, is, if you haven't already gotten it, is On Writing by Stephen King.
Yes, I have that one.
That was the first book my first copy chief had me read. He said, read this, don't write anything before you finish it. And I sat at my desk and read that as the first week on my job.
Yep.
So, I haven't forgotten it. Mainly the editing and the being concise and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, he's great.
That's one of those you should just reread every year.
Yeah. The discipline, all the stuff in it is just so good.
It's kind of like The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield. Just read that every year and understand what you're up against.
Yeah. Yep.
And that's a brilliant book too.
Yes. And probably Strunk and White. Elements of Style, just to refresh yourself. Those kind of things are just all so good. We should do a list, Jonathan, of a top 10 list of books you should read every year.
Absolutely.
Well, that'd be a tough list to make, but we could probably figure it out.
We got a recommended reading list on our website. We should definitely make one that you should read all the time.
Yeah.
You should come back to
over and over and over the
boron letters.
The boron. I mean, to this day, when I feel gosh, I needed inspiration, I'll just thumb through it and I'm like, God, this guy's a genius. One of a kind, man. One of a kind. How are you so good at this? Wow.
Yeah.
I miss those guys the guys like Clayton Makepeace, who unfortunately he passed away. Those are legends. Gary Halbert, all of those guys, it's man, just don't, you don't see the greats.
Or even like Ron
today.
Papel, the set it and forget it rotisserie guy and the spray on hair guy. Like,
Billy Mays.
Yeah. Billy Mays. He died too.
Don Lapre.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, man.
Remember Don Lapre back in the
the real estate
early 90s, I guess. Yeah. Real estate or newspaper ads.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's right.
Tiny classified ads. You can put these tiny classified all over the country.
So
he actually was mentioning that to somebody. I went and looked him up on YouTube, and he's there. He sounds exactly like Dean Grazioni. Exactly. Like they could be. I don't know. Maybe Dean came back, or John came back as Dean. I don't know.
Reincarnated.
Yes. So. Well, Jarie, this has been fun. We could do this all day long.
Oh, yeah.
Sure.
Absolutely.
I love this. This is awesome.
Tell people how they can find out about you, whichever of your 36 websites that you have.
Yes.
By the way, we know you're an engineer because you use the word constraints. There's no one that uses the word constraints except
Rich Sheffrin. Rich Sheffrin does.
Does he? Okay. All right.
Rich Sheffrin, he kind of, that's where he started, was the theory of constraints.
Yeah. Okay. That's where I got it from, because I really love I love constraints, because I think you become more creative when you're under more constraint. That's why I love frameworks, and that's why I love form so much, and why I study all these guys, because it's like, wow, like you had a certain thing you had to do. You had a page you're going to mail to someone, and they have to clip the thing out and send you a check. You're like, all right.
Yeah.
You're at another level, bro. This digital ad thing is nothing compared to that.
Easy.
Like, that's easy peasy. Like, there's an algorithm that does that stupid stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, the best place for people to, catch up with me and what I'm doing is, the podcast. It's called the Entrepreneur Ethos. It's entrepreneurethos.com. I talk about how to be a better entrepreneur, kind of educate and inspire the next generation of entrepreneurs.
Sure.
So there's that. I'm also working on something called the Story Funnel, which we talked about. And it's all about how to nail your next launch without wasting money, annoying customers, and creeping features, which is the three things that every startup has a problem with. And I'm trying to help, frame something up that can help them do that. So
I tell you what, that idea, that's the storyfunnel.co, by the way.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of people, even outside the tech space, a lot of people who start membership sites that could really use the scope creep part, like the adding too much.
Yeah.
Because people don't really, I think Ryan Dice has talked about this a lot. Like, you don't need nearly as much as you think you do.
I mean, in the entrepreneur world, startup world, it's minimum viable product, which is a very good way to constrain yourself. And part of the story funnel process does have, your minimum viable product, and then finding what's called product market fit, which is a really hard thing to do. And so part of this whole process, as I'm trying to put it down and help people with, is that tight loop, that flywheel of, okay, I did something. What do people think? It's different from the Steve Jobs approach. But once you've gone from, as Peter Thiel says, from 0 to 1, then how do you get to 1 to 1 million? That's where comes in, because you have to get the feedback, and you get constrained more because you've invented something. Now what, right? So, yeah, that's a good point. I'll think about that.
All right. Well, Jonathan, I'll let you wrap us up.
Jarie, thanks again, man. We enjoyed it. Thanks for spending some time with us today on the podcast. And we'll certainly throw some links out to our listeners on your podcast, and also where they can find your stuff over at the storyfunnel.co. So it's awesome. It's been a pleasure. And we're gonna send you to the green room for a second. Cool. Hold tight, and because we'll come back on, we'll bring you back up here in a second after we conclude. Sean, good stuff, man. As always.
I love to see a good young pupil coming into the direct response world, being converted.
It's good stuff, especially an engineer,
Yeah.
Because I got all the.
I feel like I'm doing the world a favor at that point,
Absolutely. It's like, Scott Adams talks about, you building your talent stack. You build that talent stack, you take that engineering background, you merge it with a copywriting, marketing. Perry Marshall. There you go. That's right. That's exactly right.
Yeah.
So That's a good talent stack to have.
Absolutely.
Especially in this day and age where technology is just booming. So
yeah, but I'm not going back to school to be an engineer. I'm just telling you that now. I'll just have to skip that one.
That's all right. You got enough accumulated knowledge.
Yeah, I'll be all right.
I think you'll be okay. So
yeah.
All right, guys. Well, thanks for listening. As always, you can find us over at persuasionbythepint.com. You can find us on all of your podcast platforms, Stitcher Radio, iHeart, you name it. And Sean, we'll see you guys or everyone on the next episode. Thanks for listening.
See ya.